Welcome everybody to this week's Take Charge of Your Life discussion, where we give you some tips and tricks on how to live more empowered in your mindset, live more healthy in your physical body, and live more free in the soul realm of your life. My name's Tish Taylor, and I'm from Growth Centric Living. I am an elite mentorship forum trainer and a mindset coach who offers programs to those that are looking to feel more empowered and less stuck in their lives. And I particularly feel very strongly about passing on these skills to future generations so that they may learn and grow way more before I had to go through that, before their subconscious is trained by somebody else. And this is my co-host, Roberta.
Welcome, everyone. I am Roberta, the owner of Wake Up to Life Wellness. I'm a holistic health practitioner, delving deep into the realm of quantum nutrition and aligning people with exact protocols to make sure their body can restore and optimize. And I'm also a personal transformation specialist, along with Tish, as a certified trainer for the Elite Mentorship Forum. And I'm just, focused more on thinking about how people are really struggling in this time, and that people need a solution. We need answers. We need a way to bring people up into a more positive way of being in the world. And so we're just privileged and honored to have found this path and to share it with you, because it absolutely has, changed us in innumerable ways. So we're just grateful to be here.
As we hope to be mentors and inspiration in your lives, one of the key people that has been an inspiration to us is a gentleman named Peter Sage. He is who created the Elite Mentorship Forum and who trained us under. He himself, for those of you that aren't aware, is a globally renowned serial entrepreneur with an expertise in human behavior and self-mastery. His distinct perspective has earned him recognition as an exceptional individual with the Brand Laureate Award, joining past honorees such as Nelson Mandela, Steve Jobs, and Cristiano Ronaldo. He's a 7-time TED Talk speaker, and actually just was nominated in Florida within the last month or so to be one of the top 10 motivational speakers around the world. So our format here today is to show you a clip of Peter so that you can get used to him and his teachings, and then break that down into a bigger discussion in our 3 realms of living empowered, living healthy, and living free.
So our discussion today, we titled Walking in Someone Else's Shoes. And we're going to dive into one of the most advanced skills in personal evolution, which is the ability to step into someone else's shoes so deeply that you can understand them and even appreciate them, even if you disagree with them, which for any of us, we can all feel that energy of what that feels like when we feel like somebody's not in alignment with what we believe. So this is like a master skill on the Atlas of Awareness that we've brought up in previous discussions, which is really close to the map of consciousness. So it moves us out of judgment, out of ego, and out of the need to be right. And so then we'll be moving into those higher levels of awareness and maturity, which helps us get into compassion. And really that becomes true emotional freedom when we're not triggered by other people. So here's our video for today.
When it comes to raising consciousness, what's one of the master skills that you can practice that'll really elevate you on your own journey of personal growth and spiritual development? Well, for me, it was the ability to put myself in somebody else's shoes, somebody who I'm prone to disagree with, until I can actually appreciate why they are disagreeing. In other words, if you cannot put yourself in another person's place, walk a mile in their shoes, to the point where you would actually agree with them, then you have no right to judge. Now, how do you do that? You have to suspend your willingness to be right until you're then stepping out of the shoes. You may still say, well, at least now I understand why they're that way, but I'm still choosing to have my point of view. That's okay. But until you are able to do that, you're going to stay stuck at a lower level of consciousness.
So that leads us into our live empowered part of our discussion in your mindset. One of the fastest ways to elevate your consciousness is the practice, as Peter describes there, of walking in someone else's shoes. A saying that I'm sure you have heard multiple times before. Well, this really like elaborates on what we mean by that, or what you should take from that. Not just imagining their perspective, but actually stepping fully enough into their genuine worldview, which means understanding them that from the level of, if I had the same experiences, if I had the same beliefs, if I had the same mindset as this person, then I truly would feel exactly the way they feel. And with that acceptance comes really that sense of like love and, willingness to understand that, as we've talked about before, we're all on our own journey, and this is this person's, and it's not really about me, the fact that they have a different perspective than I do. Most people don't grow because they're attached to being right. So this is making whatever their thoughts are about you. This is getting your ego involved, and being right feels safe, but it also, like I said, feeds that ego. You have this, need to be right, and we want other people to think the same way that we do, because that makes us feel better and more secure in our own thoughts. And we need to let go of that. That's really what this empowering mindset is about. We can understand that even though somebody else feels that way, we don't need to feel insulted by it. And we can choose something else at the same time. A reminder that, when we're living our own journeys personally, then, we're separate in that, and that what most people's actions and reactions to things have everything to do with them and the path that they're on, and really actually nothing to do with us at all. So by doing this, we can let go of that need to be right. And this is how we raise our consciousness. This is how we don't stay stuck trying to force everybody else in the world to see things from our own perspective. This is really part of that journey we've been talking about in our last few discussions about how you grow with your emotional maturity, which is a choice. Unlike our physical maturity, we're all aging whether we want to or not, let's be honest. So empowerment is the ability to say, let me understand you before I feel the need to defend me. And once I understand you, I can then choose to believe or still keep whatever thoughts I have that, seem right to me.
Yeah, as you're talking, I think of probably most, if not all, our suffering is caused by this one dynamic of trying to always be at odds and in duality with other people. And truly wars are fought on that very premise. Politics, the disagreement, the division is because someone needs to be right and elevate their belief system above someone else's. And even in religion, right? That's a huge thing. Like everybody thinks their religion is right. And it's just fascinating how we can get so caught up in that and thinking that, and it's so silly when I realize that there's over 8 billion people in the world and no two people agree on everything exactly the same. Like that's just fascinating to me. When I first heard that, it's just like this whole concept just made sense, and it just kind of hit home. Like there are no two people that are going to agree with me, so why would I expect them to? So it just like it took off so much of my inertia, that training that I've had, the programming to defend, like you said, most of it's out of fear anyway, and feeling threatened that maybe that person's going to think they're better than me or whatever. And when we can really get into that humility and recognize how silly it is to think that other people have to agree with us, it's just like, it's kind of mind blowing. It's so simple and obvious. Once you see it, it's like, wow, I spent a lot of time and energy in my life trying to get other people to agree with me, thinking that even that I was doing them a favor, like I know what's best for you, and I just want to protect you. And that codependent energy of and the protective mom, we think we know best in so many ways, so we kind of get hooked into that, because when our kids are little, we kind of do know best, but as they grow up and become their own individual expression in the world, I don't know what's best for any other adult in the world. Truly, it's their journey, and for me to kind of have a hands-off approach and allow them to be who they are. And I love that, being able to just, be present in the disagreement, because it doesn't solve anything and it doesn't make anyone's life better to defend that ego and to try to be right. It just absolutely causes so much suffering.
One of the best ways that I have learned to kind of really simplify this concept as much as possible is, thinking about dessert, right? Like my favorite dessert might be different than yours. Does that mean that the one that I like, which I'll let you know is cheesecake, does that mean that cheesecake is the best, dessert? And am I going to really willing to argue with somebody else about, no, cheesecake is better. No, carrot cake is better, or, like whatever. It just seems so silly when you put it kind of in those terms. But in reality, everything is like that. I get to choose what my path is for me, and you get to choose what yours is for you. And I can accept that, your palate is different than mine, even though we all have taste. And that's a sense that, most of us are lucky enough to have working within our own bodies, but the taste buds are a little bit different. Scientifically, they all look the same, but yours may have a different preference than mine, and that's okay.
Yeah, it takes the weight of the world off of our shoulders to know that we're not trying to play God and navigate someone else's truth or reality or belief system. That's really none of our business. And I see the beauty in people when I quit trying to change them and trying to make them like me, because nobody's going to be me, and that's good. And I'm not going to be anyone else, and that's good, because I don't have to try to be like somebody else, be any different than I am. We're all invited to just be authentically who we are. And yet, when there's constant resistance, if we're in a family system where there's constant division that way, or needing to be right, it's a really unhealthy environment to find our authenticity, which is really what this whole journey is about, is expressing who we really are, the gift that we have to give innately, without having to, prove it in a way that's unnatural, but just allowing it to come forth. And this is just another invitation in my mind for people to, come forth and express who they are. And even if they are defensive, and if I stay calm, I can even invite that person to calm themselves down a little bit by their energy attached to this belief, and how sure they are they're right, and how they start to feel defensive, and maybe cause division with someone that they don't want to hurt. And yet here it comes, it comes out anyway, and causes some kind of hurt or some kind of wound, or some kind of division between someone. So we can be the example and the invitation. So the more we can master this, the more we can be that change that we want to see in our world, right? In that culture. I mean, I don't know about anyone else, but seeing the way people respond on, social media and stuff, it's so undeveloped and immature emotionally and spiritually so much of the time. And it's just fast. It's just incredible how it's become such a big deal, and that people seem more and more caught up in that swirl, that chaos.
So true. I love how you linked this back to being able to build our relationships as well by letting go of that need to be right, right? We can let go of some of that hurt that sometimes comes out, that sometimes when we get defensive, etc. So really suspending your need to be right and stop reacting from the fear, which is really what that is, and you get to restart to respond from wisdom as we grow up that mountain. I think we've referred to it as over the last few weeks of emotional maturity, or up the map of awareness. This is how you expand your thinking, dissolve inner resistance, and frees up mental energy. How much energy do we spend arguing with people so unnecessarily when we think of it from this empowering mindset? This is how we can choose understanding over ego and curiosity over defensiveness, and empower ourselves, save that energy, and grow within our own journey while accepting others. And so my tip to close out this mindset section of our talk is that the next time you're feeling triggered or frustrated by someone who doesn't see things the same way, try pausing for even 5 seconds. Ask yourself, if I lived their life with their fears, their beliefs, their experiences, is there any way that I can relate to the fact that I probably would feel the same way? Can I identify even just one part of their perspective that I can understand and relate to by putting myself in their shoes? This is instantly how you can soften your mindset and elevate your consciousness.
I love that. When we think about, if I had been in the exact situation of someone else, whether it's trauma or whatever, I would be exactly like them. I couldn't be anything else. And to understand that people are doing things for a reason, and their behavior doesn't define who they are. It's just what they've been conditioned to, express in the world without having that ability to rein it in and do it in a more mature, responsive way, right? So it truly does mean that we cannot possibly understand why someone does what they do without walking in their shoes. So that's really awesome. So thank you. And so now we move into the live healthy, the physical body part of our framework. And it's focusing on rewiring your nervous system to handle disagreement without threat. So we're talking the physical nervous system and how our physical body feels. So when people get triggered by disagreement, right, it instantly brings up something in us, a defense mechanism rises, which is just a natural innate response to threat. We get stuck in conflict, or I should say we don't get stuck in conflict because of logic. Like we're not logically thinking, we're just reacting just because we're triggered. And when the body gets triggered, certain biochemistry happens in the body, certain reactions happen. So some people might have tension in their body right immediately. Some people might feel the heat rise in their response. Their chest tightens, the adrenaline rises. Some people shut down and just go quiet. Some people have the fight or flight response. Most of us have the fight or flight response when we feel threatened in any situation. It just depends on how, intense the situation is as to what level it is. So when we don't feel safe, we're not accessing our intelligence. We're not accessing that frontal brain logic and ability to reason things out. So we instantly go into survival mode, really. And no matter if we don't know how to intercept that and stop it from showing up or stop it from taking over, then we're going to be kind of the victim of it. And we're going to kind of spew that energy out onto other people. And it's not a good way to maintain healthy relationships. And, for myself and the response that I had for so many decades of the fight or flight response, it felt like it had a mind of its own and that I couldn't change it. Like, I think if you talk to anyone that has PTSD or is labeled with that diagnosis, that you just feel like you're at the mercy of this horrific response that occurs. It's so intense and it's so big and it's so overwhelming that you don't know, what to do about it. But there is a split second. There is a moment where we can intercept these patterns and start shifting the trajectory of them. So we can't just say, well, I just get really upset. That's just the way I am. We all have the ability to now become aware, make a decision to really, take this serious and look at it and see what can I do in each situation to start changing that pattern. And that's what this work really is all about, is teaching us how to master ourselves so that we aren't just reacting out of behavior, out of habit, out of conditioning. And so I love how this, reflects that the physical body absolutely is triggered, but we can have mastery over our physical body, just like we can over our mind and over our soul.
This really continues our conversation about how linked the mind and the body are in making us aware of this. As you're talking, I can remember so many circumstances where it really was about the need to feel right. When somebody like argues with me and I could, feel a little bit heated, I can feel that, my body is reacting to this. And now that I can step back and as I grow in my consciousness and awareness, I'm aware that I can choose, which, like you said, I wasn't aware that I could choose originally before leaning into this work in the first place. And then being able to recognize and retrain my body as I retrain my mind at the same time to, lessen the reaction that I'm having, that it's not about me. It's not about me being wrong or right or that person. It's just a different experience. And, somebody else is having a different perspective within their reality. And how important is this really? So my priority could be me and calming my body while accepting somebody else at the same time.
Yeah, that is beautiful. And I think, if we don't manage this or start to intercept this response, it takes a toll on our physical health, obviously. The more stress we have, the more the body ages faster, the more it, breaks down and it takes more fuel to be in a high elevated state of stress. The body's burning more fuel, so it needs more nutrition and we're not getting it. And so there's just this spiral of degeneration that occurs physically and then mentally, because the brain is part of the body, right? So if the physical body is deficient and it's stressed and it's degenerating quickly, so is the brain, right? And our ability to focus and function in the world. So that, there's so many reasons to, lean into this and really take ourselves out of passive mode of thinking that we're just a victim of our personality or our behaviors or whatever happened to us, and really step in and decide we're going to, that's kind of really what brought me to so much of my personal transformation work. I was really tired of my behaviors and my reactions and the results I was getting. So in every encounter, I'm the common denominator with my experience. And so if I'm getting defensive reactions or, a lot of chaos in my life or upset, it's really my, way of showing up, because my outer world is following my inner world and I'm attracting certain things to me. So it really is a huge benefit and a huge different life if I can manage my inner self around people, even if they are and they're upset and they are in the defensive posture. I can choose to be calm and centered, and I'm learning this skill as we go through this work consistently over time.
As you're talking, I'm thinking about how I really, when I came to this growth journey myself, even to the Elite Friendship Forum, when I signed up for that, it was my body that I was trying to control. It was, I didn't realize that it was my inner work, that there was so much work that needed to get done in my mindset. I thought that was good. I felt like I was a positive person, and it was my body. I was like, I don't understand why I'm not doing the things that I want to be doing. I don't understand why my body keeps reacting like this, and just feeling victim to it, like you said. And ironically, right, then you learn that, hey, wait, it's your body actually is following your mind. And it's work, the duality is so structured between two of them, because like you said, if your stress is so high and we allow it to get to that point, well, then our executive function goes offline, or we don't have access anymore to our conscious mind. We're solely stuck in the body's stress responses, that fight or flight, like Roberta said already. And so being able to be aware that this is an option for us, and then knowing that it's only an option if we catch it fast enough, if we practice enough times to be able to catch it in those seconds before our body and our old programming takes over, and our conscious mind kind of goes offline. So there's a lot of work in just how intertwined our mind and our body is connected to each other, which is an important part why we always have this live healthy spot within our conversations as well.
Yeah, beautiful. So the tip I have for the physical realm and the body today is really powerful. So really listen in, and it's very simple. We want to train our body to stay open in moments of disagreement. So we probably don't have to go too far to run into a disagreement in some realm of our life. And then before responding, we can do one of these micro regulation techniques. And I will post these with the video so that you can kind of really practice them. They're very simple. What I do with a lot of these hacks is I put them on my phone, either in my notes, or I record them with my voice onto my voice recorder. And then I can just, when I'm driving, even I can, hit one of them and listen to it to remind me, of these things that we can do that are so simple that really change our direction of travel in a huge way. So the first part is to drop your shoulders, which instantly tells your nervous system you're not under attack. I thought that is just so fascinating, so simple. I used to have a recovery partner, and she would, if I was under stress and I'd text her, the first thing she would text me back is drop your shoulders. And I would just laugh, because I'm like, how did she know that my shoulders were all tensed up and I was in a tense mode? That was so funny. The second tip is to slow your exhale. So when we stop and just take a big deep breath, and then we relax and take a slow exhale, it's like instantly the nervous system gets the signal that we're safe. So that instantly lowers cortisol and gives us that moment where we need to collect ourselves. It gives us that opportunity. And then the next one is release your jaw. And that is listed as the fastest way to shift out of fight mode. Interesting, huh? Especially you guys out there. That tense jaw, that we're going to be tough and we're going to prove we're right. So I think of that. I had never thought of that before, having seen this today. And then place one hand on your chest. Often I will, when I'm meditating or if I'm anxious, I'll just put my hand here, and it just feels warm and comforting and soothing, kind of like if someone was hugging you and supporting you in a tough time. And it just signals that there's grounding and connection, that I start to connect with my body and just get out of my, that survival mindset that's trying to respond and gain the upper hand, so to speak. So as your body relaxes, your consciousness elevates, like Tish said, we're able to get back into our executive thinking, which is mature thinking and, reason rather than just reaction. And when we're in a regulated body, disagreement is just information. It's not a threat. So if we can maintain that center within our physical body, we can be the observer. We can hold some strength and some space for that and just observe that person rather than getting hooked in and responding or reacting to them. So yeah, this is how we really move from reacting to relating to people and then into real maturity or self-mastery.
Thank you for sharing all of that. Such easy tips. Again, back to like some of them just being breathing, things that we can do in an instant. And you know what? The person you're talking to may not realize you're doing it at all. You just need that like second to kind of recapture yourself and ground yourself again. So that leads us into our live more free and our soul realm of our discussion. At a soul level, freedom emerges when you stop trying to control and correct people and their beliefs. Right? We don't have control over that. We've talked about that a few times. We only have control over us. That's it. When you can fully step into another person's perspective, doesn't mean though that you have to adopt it. And we want to make sure that we kind of make that distinction that, you know, stepping into somebody else's shoes and trying to understand them from where they are is really about this extenuating unconditional love to others, right? That understanding and acceptance that we're all on our own path, and you know that's beautifully aligned and correct for you, and I can choose my own truth and practice my own belief system, and I don't need you to validate it, and I don't need to correct you either. None of those become part of the soul freedom realm. That's where stress and all of those other negative things comes from. So I can live in acceptance without agreement. And this is what dissolves judgment, helps you raise your own vibration and reconnect with your source, your energy, your soul realm of things, which is where all of your power lies. When I can say things like, I understand you, but I still choose my own truth and honor my own path. This is how we no longer feel entangled with our ego and a need for superiority. This is freedom. This is soul growth. This is the shift from separation and the feeling that we're all on our own, and therefore we're trying to like almost collect people by having them agree with us, and instead understand that we are all beautifully linked in one way or another, teaching each other lessons, being a mirror to each other, and all those other reasons why somebody actually may be in your movie disagreeing with you. But then accept that and, you know, live within a spiritual maturity of understanding we're all connected, not separate, and even though it doesn't look like it.
As you're sharing, I think of how for me, getting in the soul realm is that quiet space that I get into. And I think, you know, before when I had more conflict and more, you know, conversations in my own head, and, you know, after you have a difficult encounter with someone and you're just like, and I still would leave and have those conversations about how right I am. And I can't believe they can't see this. And can't believe they did that. I would never do that, you know, all the self-righteous ego. And when I'd get in my quiet space, you know, it didn't feel so good. It didn't feel good to try to prove I'm right. You know, it didn't feel good at a soul level. It didn't feel good as to how it impacted the other person. It didn't feel good that the relationship now had a rift. And, you know, then you have to go back and make amends. You know, we joked about that in my recovery work for a long time, you know, that we don't want to keep doing these things because then we have to go back and make amends every time. So let's just learn how to do it differently so we don't have to constantly be, you know, trying to get people to trust us again or, you know, want to be around us or whatever. So really, it's really within our best life, really, to be able to not consistently repeat these patterns, but really get quiet and centered and ask, you know, yourself, how is this serving me, you know, and what could I do differently? Having these awarenesses and these tips to start shifting has been a huge part of my soul healing, because I don't know, as a lover, it just doesn't feel good to have people upset with me. And, you know, especially when I'm the one causing it or contributing or staying in the chaos of it, I can choose to disconnect from it and come back as a more humble version of myself. But if we stay in that constant conflict, it doesn't feed the soul. It doesn't feed our purpose. And I'm not being the example in the invitation. I'm not, you know, contributing to a kinder, more loving environment in the world either with my close people or other people that I'm just, you know, associated with. So yeah, I love this deep dive into the soul understanding of all this and how it affects us. because yeah, we want to have relationship. That's what life's about.
I appreciate how you're tying this back to relationship and the fact that we're not just talking about circumstances where you're dealing with a stranger. We're also talking about relationship building with people that are important to you, people that you genuinely care about, and how quickly sometimes arguments and different perspectives can lead to wrecking relationships or a reason to have to apologize or make amends because, back to the live healthy, you've allowed your body to react in a way that maybe you're not so proud of afterwards, and or your ego to sort of take over your words, etc. So this is why we call this discussion and this part of our discussion, freedom, because we can live free from that need to do anything and put above anything else our relationships and our bonds and our ability to feel blessed by the people that are in our lives and be able to strengthen those relationships instead of break them down. And so that leads us into our tip for this part of our discussion. Our last tip for today: anytime you feel judgment rising, ask yourself, is this my ego speaking or my soul? And, help yourself identify which is which so that you can then choose actions from that soul realm, from that inner wisdom, the part of you that seeks unity, compassion, and understanding of others, while also following your own individual growth path.
Right. So in conclusion, we're just going to wrap it up and summarize the 3 frameworks. And so for the mind, we talked about most people don't grow because they're too attached to being right. So we get stuck in that immature defensive posture. So empowerment is the ability to say, let me understand you before I defend me. And like Tish said, again, we don't need to agree with that person. We just need to not judge their belief because they're sticking to it in most cases. And we're not going to be able to change their mind, and nor should we, it's their movie. And in the body, we talked about most people don't get stuck in conflict because of logic. They get stuck because their body is triggered. So if your body relaxes, your awareness or your consciousness elevates, you respond more maturely. Because in a regulated body, disagreement is simply information and it's not a threat. So 90% of the time, what people are saying and doing is not a threat, an actual threat. It's just a reactive feeling in our nervous system based on conditioning. And in the soul realm, when you can say, I understand you, I still choose my own truth, but I honor your path, then you're not entangled with the ego's need for superiority. And to me, anyway, this is true freedom.
So this talk actually is our number 40 discussion. As we've been talking throughout the last year, we've really been picking subjects from our premium elite mentorship forum program. And this is from module 12 out of the 13 modules that gives you a full transformation. So if you're feeling aligned with this, we would love to be able to deep dive into these concepts much more with you through our programs. So allow you to really grow along this path, because that's what our program does, is essentially grow your emotional maturity and help you up that mountain.
Yeah, we can't change by listening just to information. We need to have an immersive embodied experience. So immersion over time entrains our brain and our being, right, to show up differently. It took us decades, right, to be trained to be reactive or whatever our struggles are, right? I was depressed, so I had years of training in being discouraged and defeated and depressed. It takes some time and some immersion of an experience now to reprogram the whole mind, body, and soul into a different direction of travel. And so just getting information will never fully transform us into, living that experience and becoming that experience. And so the Elite Mentorship Forum has just been, and that's one of the reasons I actually joined at the time, was it was inviting me to have a peer group for life that's going to be diving into this level of transformation and becoming that version that I knew I could be, that I was always seeking and that I was wanting to be. And just being in that experience and with those people has absolutely kept me on this path. And it keeps me moving in that direction. I don't fall back into those old behaviors where I feel stuck. So this is a kind of a lifelong return on investment, if you will.
Yeah, growth is an active process. So we invite you to take the first steps if this is calling to you and you're feeling stuck and like you want more out of life and are hoping that somebody could give you the roadmap to do that. We have that for you. And it has been a life changer for me. And your first step is to reach out to us. It's free to get on a call with us and learn more about the program and potentially what your next steps might be for you personally on your journey.
So, thanks, Tish. And so we're just going to close today with a quote. And the quote is, wisdom begins the moment you stop needing to be right and start wanting to understand. So thank you all for connecting with us today, giving us your time and attention. That's so valuable. And if you feel led, like and subscribe and share this with other people. That helps us share our message. And we have such a privilege to be here and to share this time with you today. So thank you.
Stay tuned for next week's discussion. We hope to see you again.